Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Eerie Enigma Paranormal. I'm your host, Ben, and today we're delving into the depths of the unknown, beyond the veil that separates our world from the realms of spirits and energies. The practice of communicating with spirits and divining the future has ancient origins, dating back thousands of years. Various ancient civilizations, including the Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, and Chinese, had traditions of oracles, seers, and mediums who claimed to have supernatural abilities to perceive information beyond the physical realm. In the 19th century, the modern spiritualist movement emerged in the United States and Europe. It gained popularity amid the backdrop of the Industrial Revolution and the aftermath of the Civil War. Spiritualism emphasized the belief in communication with the spirits of the dead through mediums. This movement led to the increase of seances, mediumship demonstrations, and the establishment of spiritual churches and organizations. In Victorian times, psychic mediums held a curious fascination for many, reflecting the era's intrigue with the supernatural and the unknown. Amidst the backdrop of scientific advancements, of societal shifts, mediums like Daniel D. Home, Florence Cook, and Eusapia Palladino captivated audiences with their purported ability to bridge the gap between the living and the spirit world. Seances where mediums claimed to communicate with the deceased become popular at social gatherings, attended by the curious and the skeptical alike. Despite skepticism and controversies surrounding these practices, these mediums gained significant attention and even attracted the interest of prominent figures of the time. The Victorian era's fascination with psychic mediums not only offered entertainment, but also served as a reflection of society's quest for the understanding of the mysteries beyond the tangible realm. Throughout history, notable royalty have occasionally turned to psychic mediums in their quest for guidance and insight. From ancient civilizations to modern monarchies, rulers have sought the counsel of those claiming to possess supernatural abilities. Queen Victoria of England, known for her deep interest in the occult, reportedly consulted with mediums to communicate with her beloved Prince Albert after his passing. Queen Elizabeth I of England is said to have relied on the advice of astrologers and seers during her reign. Also more recently, Princess Diana, known for her interest in spirituality and the paranormal, is rumoured to have sought guidance from psychics during challenging times in her life. While the extent of their belief in psychic abilities varies, the engagement of royalty with mediums highlights the enduring allure of the mystical and the desire for guidance beyond conventional means. Throughout history, psychics and mediums have remained subjects of fascination, controversy, and inquiry, reflecting humanity's enduring curiosity about the mysteries of the mind, consciousness, and the afterlife. Joining me on this journey today are two beautiful souls, renowned psychic mediums who traditionally, in my point of view, don't fit one box within the field of paranormal. They are trailblazers, they are unique within the field, and this is one of the many reasons I resonate and call these ladies my friends. Combined, they have decades of experience with going beyond the veil. So it's my absolute pleasure to welcome to the show Nikki from Crossroads with Spirit and Jules from Mystic Jules. Welcome to the show, ladies. I've been so excited for this moment.
Hey, Ben. Hey, Jules. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here and I can't wait. It's a great topic to talk about.
Thank you, Ben. I'm really excited to be here and chat with you, Nikki, and your listeners.
Ladies, thank you so much. I would love for you to give our listeners an overview of your background and expertise before I jump into some questions.
Well, I'm Nikki, and I'm a psychic, a medium, a witch, a paranormal investigator, and I will say, and a necromancer. The supernatural and the paranormal world have always been a deep passion for me. Ever since I was a baby, I have had the connection to spirit where I've seen them, heard them, and just, I don't know how else to explain it. It's just always been a normal for me. And over time, I have strengthened that connection and communication with spirit because I believe I have this ability for a reason. And I connect with those that have passed, spirit guides, whether they be angels, elementals, the animal kingdom, the fae. It's quite a natural thing for me to do. And how I do my thing is that I see them as if I see everybody else. That's how I don't know, it's always just simply been there. I believe that I have this ability to, I don't know, maybe help people heal or inspire them, but mainly to let people know or to realize that they're not alone, that, we all have these amazing beings of light with us that walk through every step that we do, and even our loved ones, that they are still very much with us, even if they are just over the fence, is how I used to look at it when I was little, that there was just a fence separating on them and me. And I just knew, though, that they were still there. I like to think by doing what I do brings either closure or understanding or a bit of healing. But I have always had this ability or the gift, or I don't know. I have a funny way of even calling it a gift because I don't believe it is for me. I just do what I do. That's all it is. And I believe I'm here to help change people's lives by providing an understanding of spirit and the soul as well as the universe. And that's what I'm here to do.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Nikki. It's remarkable to hear how you've embraced your intuitive abilities since childhood, seeing spirits as naturally as you see anybody else. Your gift of connecting with the spiritual realm seems to be woven into the fabric of who you are, shaping your perspective and purpose in profound ways. Jules, I'd love to hear about your expertise and background.
Well, from a very early age, I was told that I communicated with spirits, which I thought was completely normal, to be honest. I can see them and speak to them as I do living people. But it wasn't until I went to school and I was teased about it when I spoke to my friends that I found out that it wasn't normal. So I pretty much kept what I could do quiet. As I got older, I also discovered that I could see things that haven't happened yet, as well as being able to feel things, both good and bad, that were not necessarily related to me, if that makes sense. Later in life, I would learn that those gifts were being called a psychic and an empath. But as an adult, I became very selective about who I opened up to, and especially about what I could do. And as my abilities grew, I found that I struggled because I had no mentors or people around me to help. If I wanted to find something out, I'd have to go to the library and read about it in a book. And fast forward to when we had the internet, which was great, I not only got the opportunity to research things and find out what terminology was about the things I can do and such, but I was also able to connect with others similar to me. I was still able to help people like I do today, like if they had problems with their homes, if they were having stuff go on with ghosts and things like that, but it wasn't as common back then as it is now, if that makes sense. So fast forward to maybe 6-7 years ago, I would help people moderate their Twitch streams, certain people in the paranormal industry. And I even did some tarot reading and remote readings, which I was encouraged to create Mystic Jules as a persona, I guess you could say. So that's when I created my page and my Instagram. And not long after that, I was given the opportunity to host paranormal tours at the Caboolture Historical Village, where I have been doing it for about 6 years, coming this October, actually. So I also just really enjoy getting together with my friends in the paranormal community, like yourself, Ben, and also Nikki, and exploring interesting locations or coming together to do workshops and other activities which help others, which I also enjoy doing with Katie as well, from Katie Harvey Paranormal. But as far as expertise goes, like you said, I don't fit into any specific category, but I have psychic abilities, empath, eclectic witch, and the intuitive paranormal investigator side, which means that I don't use paranormal investigation equipment, but I do find it really interesting when I investigate with my friends who also use equipment. But yeah, that's a bit about me.
Thank you for sharing with us, Jules. It's heartwarming to hear about your sense of affinity within the paranormal community. The bond you share with fellow enthusiasts like myself, Nikki, and Katie speaks to the collaborative spirit of exploration and learning, which is what we're all about. Your openness to different perspectives and experiences enriches not only your own journey, but also those around you. I've been privileged to join Jules at Caboolture Historical Village a few times over the years, and I love the passion that you have, Jules, for preservation and history, and I cannot wait for our collective investigation later on this year. Nikki, I just want to jump back to you for a moment. You mention of being a necromancer caught my attention, and it's a term that doesn't often receive much discussion. So I'm intrigued, and I'm sure our listeners are as well. And let's delve deeper into the aspect of your expertise. So, necromancy historically is associated with communicating with the deceased or even raising the dead, carries with it a certain mystique and fascination. So, Nikki, could you elaborate on how you interpret and practice necromancy in your work? And how does it fit into your broader understanding of the spiritual realm and your interactions with it?
Great question. Well, necromancy is a combination of, how should you say, tools or procedures, if you even want to use that term, utilizing either old fashioned voodoo or even witchcraft. And the bottom line is that what it is somebody simply conjuring. And I know that even those terms people step away from, mainly due to thanks to all the movies. However, it's not like, for me anyway, it's not like I sit down and use a Ouija board and call up a spirit or do a spell or a ritual to conjure spirit. Necromancy is simply communicating with spirit, whether it be a guide or a past loved one or even a mythical creature. Now, for me, when I have either a platform event or whether I'm one-on-one with a client, of that day, I have a certain, I suppose you'd call them rituals or routines that I go through that I do. And it's basically for me, though, keeping myself grounded as well as raising my vibration.
And that's a very important step.
Most of the times when I'm doing readings, the clients, members, loved ones that have passed, even animals will come beforehand. And I'll talk to them and they said, oh, my daughter's coming to see you today. Or a dog will turn up or a cat, etc. Other times I sit down and I begin to speak to the client and their loved one will literally walk in through the door. For me, what I also do though, as I was stating before about my own little routine that I do, I wouldn't call it a prayer or anything like that. I would just state it as I have certain words that I utilize, that I say. And working with my guides also prepare, I guess you could say, the gateway or door opening or the portal for whoever's coming through that day, because they know it before I do. And necromancy is also about, in some aspects, the manifestation of spirit. And again, I've had clients either one-on-one or in a group setting where people will actually hear knocks. We'll hear knocks on the door. And I did the other day and said, come in. And my client heard the knock and there was no one there. No one was in the house. Lights will flicker. Just normal supernatural type things will occur.
I have definitely witnessed some of those things you've just said, yeah.
And again, that is a manifestation, whether it's even at times I've had photographs taken of me while channeling spirit and they will see ectoplasm, manifestation of spirit, all comes under the necromancy. Most people, though, don't like the term because it frightens them. They think necromancy, they think I'm going to do something bad or conjure up spirit. It's actually just simply communicating with your loved ones.
Thank you, Nikki. I'm learning so much from you. This is amazing. And I think necromancy is one of those words that's been put out there in Hollywood, and that's why people associate it with like evil and something bad, like you were referring to before. But like you say, it's simply just communicating with your loved ones, and I completely agree with that. Jules, you mention of being an eclectic witch piqued my interest, and it's a term that may not be widely recognized. I'm curious to learn more about what being an eclectic witch entails and how it influences your practice. Now, eclectic witchcraft is known for its diverse and personalized approach, drawing from various traditions, beliefs, and practices. Jules, are you able to tell us and our listeners how you incorporate eclectic elements into your witchcraft? And what specific rituals, spells, and traditions resonate with you? And how do you blend them together in your spiritual work? I'd love to know.
That's a really good question, Ben, because I actually get asked this a lot. As I've said earlier, I've never been one to fit in a particular box or category. It wasn't until many years ago that I learnt the term eclectic witch was something that resonated with me. So in basic terms, an eclectic witch is someone who enjoys practicing a variety of methods in their crafts practices that works for them personally. What I love about this aspect is it is a very inclusive and nurturing practice, and it's especially good for those new to the craft and in the discovery stage of their practice. I've also found that people who are not out of the witch's closet, so to speak, tend to practice this too, because it is a very solitary practice. And you don't need to be out there or join a coven or anything like that. It gives you the chance to explore your path and find what resonates with you personally, rather than just practicing, say, one magical practice. So, for example, you can delve into elemental magic, kitchen witchery, crystal magic, color and candle magic, green witchcraft, and ritual magical practices.
Okay, wow, there's so many additional elements that I wasn't aware of.
Now, the way that I incorporate being an eclectic witch into my witchcraft, for me personally, I take what resonates with me and I use those practices in my day-to-day life, as well as when I'm helping others or investigating as well. So just on a basic level, when I'm making my morning coffee, that in itself has magical properties, such as clearing blockages, energy boosting, improved communication, just to name a few. And let's face it, I can't communicate to anyone at all until I've had my morning coffee. But also, if there's something I want to manifest for my day, like a project that I'm working on or something important to me, I will say an affirmation 3 times and stir my coffee 3 times clockwise.
I love that. This is something we can all resonate with, and we can all do that.
If, however, I want to deflect something from me, like negative energy, negative thoughts, or whatever the case may be there, I will also do an affirmation that will help, but I will also stir the coffee anti-clockwise to this direct it away from me, if that makes sense. I'll also use certain oils and colours when I'm making my candles because that's something that I love to do. But doing that also helps me with specific things. And when I do my housework, even, I will do certain practices using specific herbs or oils or whatever and put blessings, say blessings as I'm doing these particular tasks. Now, unlike many people, I don't particularly do spells as such. And I know that does sound a bit weird, but I will do blessing, which in layman's terms is very similar to what people would call a prayer. And often, how I am in my everyday life will cross over into my spiritual work as well, because it is a very spiritual and unique practice. So it kind of crosses over. And it is who I am at my very core. No matter if I'm helping a living client or communicating with spirit, I give them the respect of being as authentic as to who I am as possible.
I think it's beautiful to hear, Jules, how you intertwine your spiritual practices with your daily life in such a genuine way. Your commitment to being authentic shines through in everything you do, whether it's stirring your coffee or blessing your home. Keep being true to yourself, Jules. Nikki and Jules, I'd like to explore the difference between being a psychic and a medium, as it's a topic that can often be misunderstood. While both terms are commonly used in discussions about the supernatural, there are distinct characteristics that set them apart. Could you delve deeper into how you perceive and navigate these roles in your own practice? And what unique abilities or experiences do you associate with being a psychic or a medium? And how do you integrate them into your work?
Well, for me, the difference is not all psychics are mediums. However, all mediums are psychics. And that being said, it is due to, again, this is my experience, what I've learned working with spirit, what I've been told by spirit, and what my actual experience is. With me being a psychic, for me, what I do is I receive the information, say, as a vision. It might be something that comes through, as previously spoken about dreams. I can also be talking to a client and have it's sort of like a movie for me, going like a movie that goes really quick in my head. And it could be a series of, like somebody showed you 10 photographs. And for me, I've got to put it all together. And the images or the feelings, that is the psychic side of it. The mediumship side of it is when you simply communicate directly with spirit. There are others out there that will connect with the person's aura, the auric field, and they open psychically that way, and then they go through and communicate with spirit. That's not a medium, that's a psychic. A psychic is someone that communicates via images or feelings, information, etc. Medium, as I stated before, is a direct communication with spirit, and that is speaking, whether it be out loud, verbally, or in your mind. For me, I see spirit and I see them with my eyes, not just my third eye. Mediumship is having a communication with spirit directly one-on-one. There's nothing psychic about it. And I mean that by when you connect with a spirit, they can sit with you and they simply communicate directly. How I incorporate in that everyday work for me is when I'm with a client, after we sit down, I begin always start off explaining how I do my work. Unless, of course, the client has seen me before, then they're used to it. I have a routine. I have an area on the left-hand side where spirit come in and they literally walk through the door. I then begin and we communicate the whole time. There are times where the client may ask me a simple question. I can ask that of spirit, and then during that time of communication, spirit will also show me things. And those images or those feelings, that is the psychic side of it. Even though spirit is communicating it to me, and I will gather that information, and at times I'll also ask the client for confirmation, especially if I'm seeing snippets of bits and pieces. I'll say to the client, for example, I can see a piece of land, I'm seeing horses, and I'm seeing corn. Does that make any sense to you? And most of the time, like I've had clients go, yes, my grandparents had a farm and they grew corn and they had horses. So it just depends on every individual, of course, but for me, that's how that works.
Thank you, Nikki. It's fascinating to hear different perspectives on the intricacies of psychic abilities and mediumship. I completely resonate with your viewpoint that while all mediums possess psychic abilities, not all psychics necessarily function as mediums. For me, it boils down to the mode of connection and communication and the nature of this connection. Jules, I'd love your insight and perspective.
Ben, as Nikki has said, there is a difference between a psychic and a medium. I often get asked, but aren't they the same thing? But there is a difference between the two. A psychic uses their intuition, or ESP, which is extrasensory perception, to predict future events, even see past events, and receive messages through mental images or even specific messages without that physical interaction. Sometimes I will see things that don't make an ounce of sense to me, but it absolutely does to a client having a reading. And at the end of the day, that's what really matters. Medium has the ability to communicate with spirits. And in my case, I can see, hear, and interact with spirits as I would a living being. And in some case, I will have spirits that communicate because they want to pass messages on to their loved ones. Sometimes they just want to have a chat because it's nice to have someone that can actually communicate with them. And while I can't provide evidence of this, I also use my mediumship skills when on paranormal investigations, because while the investigation equipment is pretty cool, it doesn't always reflect the energy or the feeling of the direct communication that I receive from the spirits being a medium. The way I integrate the two into my work is taking that time to open the lines of communication. If a spirit wants to have a chat, the mediumship will be the key component in my investigation or reading. If it is more images or events or things like that, I know it's more of a psychic element. And again, if it's needed, I will pass information on to whoever needs it, but only if there's consent. I just don't go up to people randomly in the shops or message them through Facebook saying, hey, I've got a message for you.
Thanks, Jules. I appreciate your ethical approach to your work, especially highlighting the importance of consent and discretion when delivering these messages. It's evident that you approach your interactions with sensitivity and respect for both the living and the dead. And that's something that I live by when I'm out there investigating in the paranormal realm. And like you, in a similar way, when I'm out investigating, sometimes I don't like to use the equipment, even though it is amazing. I'll try and tune in to my sensitivities. So sometimes I'll get like a smell, or I'll get like a name like whispered into my ear, things like that that will set me up for that investigation. And I tend to know before entering as well, like, is this going to be an investigation that we're going to use the equipment, or we're going to use our sensitivities, or we're going to use both? So, yeah, it really comes down to the individual and the location. So, ladies, my next question: how do individuals usually go about developing their psychic abilities? And what methods are commonly employed for cultivating mediumship skills?
Ben, there are many ways people can go about developing their psychic abilities. In fact, if you do a Google search on how to do that, there are pages and pages, even videos and heaps of information to delve into. But I think it really comes down to the individual and what they're drawn to the most. I think we all have some sort of psychic ability. Some will call it intuition, some call it gut instinct, even a sixth sense. But some of us are more attuned to different or varied aspects than others. I know there are a lot of courses available online as well that promote developing psychic abilities and medium skills, but I honestly couldn't tell you if they're beneficial or not because it's not something that I personally have looked into myself. For me personally, it has been something that has grown and still grows because we never stop learning or experiencing new things. Key points I think that's important to consider if any of your listeners are wanting to develop their own skills, to believe in yourself and what you can do. Don't put pressure on yourself to get it all right the first time. Just relax and enjoy the process. Learn your breath work, cleansing, and protection skills. I think that's really important. And just practice. Find fun ways to practice or even apply opportunities to hone in on psychic aspects in your everyday life. Finally, if there's something or someone that you're inspired by, such as a psychic or medium, contact them and see if they offer mediumship skills. Follow their social pages, as some of them share information, tips, and all these other different things. So they might even do interactive chats or lives on their platforms. So that's another good way to tap into learning and expanding psychic abilities if that's something that your listeners are interested in.
Thanks, Jules. Your emphasis on intuition, gut instincts, and the sixth sense resonates deeply with me. It's a journey of self discovery and continuous growth, isn't it? Now, your advice on belief, patience, and embracing the learning process is invaluable. Nikki, we'd love to hear from you.
I believe that people develop their own abilities in different ways. For myself, I've always had this ability ever since I was a little girl. For others, I know that the ability comes later in life, whether that's through intention or even a traumatic experience can enhance the ability for psychic development, intuition, your gut instinct, even visions, etc. And the common methods that are used, besides books, workshops, they're even through crystals. It's always starts or comes back with that intention and what you want to do, even comes down to why you want to do it. You don't always have to have clients in a professional way, so to speak. However, there are ways that you can develop it through just even hanging out in nature.
Thanks, Nikki. I completely resonate with your perspective on psychic development. It's fascinating how our abilities unfold uniquely. Personally, my intuition has been a constant since childhood, and exposure to paranormal situations has only amplified it, enriching my learning journey. Nikki, you're also spot on about intention being a catalyst, whether it's through books, workshops, or even crystals. It all begins with that internal drive and purpose. And you're absolutely right. Connecting with nature can be such a powerful way to nurture and develop these abilities. Now, ladies, how do you handle skepticism or criticism regarding the legitimacy of psychic medium practices?
I've experienced a lot of skepticism and criticism over the years, sometimes from people I am very close to, which can really hurt and put that seed of doubt within myself. And in particular, recently, when you're advertising and promoting tours and events, you've always got someone that's got a smart comment to make or is against it. So it's something that I face every day. But you know what? I have learnt, firstly, that this has nothing to do with me and more to do with them. And secondly, every time I have ignored my abilities to make someone else comfortable, it usually backfires and I discover I was right or on the right path. Doubting myself to make others comfortable only benefits them, not me. And if I hide who I am every time I come across someone that's skeptic or questions my legitimacy, I wouldn't be doing what I do now. That's just to put it bluntly. And I guess lastly, at the end of the day, when it all comes down to it, people, including myself, have a right to an opinion. We're always going to agree. We're not always going to agree on everyone's opinions or beliefs, and I respect that. If someone is absolutely in their opinion that psychics are fake, they have either had a really bad experience with one themselves or they're just very steadfast in their own opinion. And there's nothing that me or anyone else can do that will change that. And at the end of the day, it's really not my job to prove myself or my abilities to anyone. But it is my job to be as authentic and as real as I can be, possibly for myself. I will never go out of my way to force someone to change their viewpoint, but I will continue to be who I am. I'll continue to be in my truth. And if they have an experience with me that changes their perception organically, that's great. If not, I really hope they have an opportunity to discover what they need to in order to come to their beliefs in their own time. Also, another thing to remember is just because I do believe in spirit interaction, paranormal, etc., I also believe it is logical to also have some healthy skepticism as well. After all, not everything is paranormal, and sometimes things can be logically explained through scientific or even medical explanations. It's always important to seek possible alternative explanations where you can, especially when it comes to investigation.
Thanks, Jules. Your words really resonate with me. Dealing with skepticism and criticism, especially from those close to us, is quite challenging. Hiding who I am wouldn't get me where I am today, plain and simple. And you're absolutely right about opinions. They're as varied as the stars. While I respect differing viewpoints, I won't go out of my way to change someone else's mind. My job is to stay true to myself, authentic and real, for my own sake. Nikki, what have you been through with skepticism and criticism?
How I handle skepticism and criticism is to start off with you're going to get that no matter what. In this industry, it's not rampant, but it's very real. And at the end of the day, no matter what you do or what you say, people, the skeptics are going to stay that way. People that criticize it, yes, they may not necessarily always be a skeptic. However, for me, how I deal with it is, well, thankfully, I haven't had to deal with it very much. I always believe or come back to the belief that wherever they're coming from, whether they're fearful of the unknown or this sort of thing scares them. I've even got a good friend of mine who's quite scientific, and yet she's very psychic as well and cops a lot of flack for it, but she just shrugs it off and says, well, I know what I know. And at the end of the day, you've got to just, I suppose, have your own way of dealing with it. You seek your own counsel. And even little things like, hanging out in nature or grounding, the ocean is always very good for cleansing. And I know that that's another topic altogether. But these things are very important in keeping your vibration high, which is all about being a psychic medium.
Thanks, Nikki. It's a reality we can't escape. No matter what we do or say, some people will always remain skeptics or critics. And look, I'm fully on board for constructive skepticism and criticism. Personally, I haven't faced it too often, thankfully. I believe it often stems from fear of the unknown or discomfort with the supernatural. Nikki and Jules, how do you define spirit interaction within the context of your practice? Can you give our listeners the various ways in which spirits may communicate with mediums or psychics? And what role does interpretation play in understanding messages from beyond the veil?
Ben, for me, spirit interaction has always been something that is normal. I can see and communicate with them as I do living people. I will sense them, smell them, and even feel them when they are present. The other aspect is that I'm also a very sensitive empath. So I will often feel what they don't say. And I guess my practice is if I give them the opportunity to be seen, heard, and acknowledged in what they hope is a safe space for them. Because you can imagine not being able to communicate or even be acknowledged for however long it is that they have been in that space. It would be pretty hard. So I give them that space to be able to communicate. For the most part, ironically, most will be pretty respectful and pleasant to interact with and communicate with. Some, like living people, can be rude and disrespectful too. I've learnt to develop communication boundaries when it comes to this though. I think a lot comes down to how I interact with them from the start. So it's very unlikely you will hear me be disrespectful or provoke them. Therefore, they usually do respond in kind. But if they do disrespect me, I do firmly let it be known that that's not going to wash with me. And if they want communication and want to be heard, they need to play nice. Doesn't always happen though, but for the most part, it does. Sometimes they don't talk at all. I know it might sound really weird to listeners, but being an empath, I will feel messages when they can't speak. When I start to feel something in particular, and I know it's not my own emotional feeling, I know it is their way of communicating something to me. And then there are times when they connect with me on a psychic level and let me see something. It might be a message, a location, an activity, whatever the case may be. Usually, when I see something, I will communicate to them what it is I am seeing, and they will give me some sort of confirmation or the light so that I know I am on the right path. I always believe I am there with them for a reason at that particular time. And if it's important to them to communicate to me, then it's important to me to find out what that reason is and what I can do to help, if at all. Or maybe it's just that they want to share their story.
Thanks, Jules. I admire your commitment to respectful interaction, even in the face of rudeness and disrespect. It's a testament to your professionalism and empathy. And this is something I'm a big believer in. It's essential to bear in mind that as we delve into the world of spirit, we are treading in the footsteps of those who have gone before us. While the pursuit of paranormal proof can be captivating, I always maintain the awareness that these spirits were once living people, cherished by someone. It's paramount to approach our interactions with openness and respect, although there may be exceptions in some cases. Your willingness to listen and understand, whether through verbal or nonverbal cues, showcases a profound connection beyond the tangible realm, and something that I can relate to personally. Sometimes you get the gut feeling or a smell just overcomes you. The psychic connections you describe, Jules, add another layer of intrigue to your encounters. It's as though you're deciphering a language beyond words, interpreting messages and visions to uncover the mysteries of the spirit world. Nikki, I would love your insights.
Now, with regards to this question, it's all a combination to me. For me, I see spirit with my eyes, and I have ever since I was a little girl. I first met my first Palladian when I was 7 years old. Scared the absolute heck out of me because I didn't know what this thing was. On the flip side of it, being out in the garden and in nature, I also got to see the Fae. And living little things like the Tooth Fairy, even though I know now what that really is, for me, they would show me a little fairy. Now, my way of doing things in my practice, for example, when I've seen a brand new spirit, they may not always just rock up how they used to look on Earth. Sometimes they're all shimmery or all colours. And I mean that with, vibrancy of purples and oranges, blues, greens. It's not that's got nothing to do with them being their favourite colour. It's their energy and how it's adjusting to being in the spirit world. Once they are, how should I word it, in their time of being in spirit for a while, they become more human-like. However, they're also a lot younger. They don't look 80-something when they come and visit me. They look like in their 20s. And that's how they come to me. I have had occasionally those that will come showing me how they used to look. If, for example, I had a client in spirit that came through and this gentleman had lost his arm. Well, that's how he came in, showing me that. And then as he proceeded with the reading, his arm was there. And he explained it to his daughter that he didn't need to have the missing arm anymore because he was in the spirit world where there is absolute perfection. There is nothing in that place except love and joy. It's the most beautiful place ever. Now, the role for me, I'm the messenger. I have to learn and know how to interpret messages. And that's why my guides come in very handy. I'm used to, for example, I can have a client come in that has, say, whether they're European. I've had a Russian client come in, or their grandmother was Russian and didn't speak English. And yet I could understand everything she said because she's in the spirit world. There's no language barriers. There is just, again, as I said before, that perfection. And my role again is interpreting what spirit is saying or what they're showing me. And sometimes it's both. I've had spirit come in and they do nothing but talk and talk and talk the whole reading. I've had others that will talk a little bit and show me things. It's up to them. I don't question them. The only time I question spirit is if I'm not sure of something, and I'll, and if they don't want to always talk about things, because you remember they were once human too, and things can be traumatic for them. And they sometimes don't want to talk about either how they passed or even certain parts of their life. And I don't ever make them because that's not my job. That's not what I'm here for. My role is the communication, the one in between, the bridge, so to speak. And I try, if I can, to either bring some sort of healing or closure. Whatever needs to take place, I believe that will do that. I don't question, as I said, what's what or who's what or why. And at times you have to it's a big trust. And I don't have any issues. I just know my guides are there and they will help me with spirit no matter what. I've never had an issue. And the role of understanding that is what they're trying to say. Most of the time, as I said, they just talk to me. And they have their own need for being there. They have a need that they may just simply want to tell the person that's come to see me is thank you. I've had that before, nothing else. And that client understood that. I've had others that just come in and say, I'm sorry, and walk right back out again. That happens too. Other times I've had animals. I talk to animals as well. Now, I know that sounds funny. How they communicate, they don't move their mouth. It's telepathic. I can understand and hear what they're saying. And they show me. Most of the times animals will show me. And they will always bring the most amazing unconditional love for whoever's there as the client, whether it be their dad or their mum. And at the end of the day, animals come down with unconditional love and they return. They have no fear of going home. They don't have a fear of dying or anything like that because they know they've come from love and they're going to return straight back to it. So my role in understanding is putting, I suppose, a story all together and relaying that story to my client.
Thanks, Nikki. Your role as a messenger, bridging the gap between the earthly and spirit realms, echoes my own experiences. It's a profound responsibility, one that requires deep empathy and unwavering trust in the guidance of spirit guides. Your insights into communication with animals touch my heart. I've shared in this telepathic exchange of emotions with my furry companions, feeling the warmth of their unconditional love and the depth of their understanding. Thank you again for sharing your journey with such honesty and vulnerability. Your words have illuminated the path we walk as conduits between worlds, reminding me of the beauty and complexity of the unseen forces that shape our lives. We'll be back with some questions from our listeners after this short break. Ladies, welcome back. I have some questions submitted by our lovely listeners, and we'll start with Yvonne. Hi, I would love to ask these two ladies the following. When are you receiving and channeling messages from the other side? Can you determine when or if you are dealing with an evil or mischievous spirit? Thanks, Yvonne.
Hi, Yvonne. Julie here. Yes, you can definitely tell when you're channeling when you are interacting with someone that's not so pleasant and mischievous. For me personally, and I can't speak for all people that have psychic abilities or communicate with spirits, but my own personal experience is you pick up on their energy. Energy usually doesn't lie. So for me, I will get a specific feeling or sensation. I will also get images of who I'm connecting with because I have that ability to do so. On the very rare occasion, they will trick me because they're mischievous. But it doesn't really take a great deal of time to sort of get my bearings around it. Sometimes, and this does happen, you come across some that are full of ego. They like to make out they're more than what they are, if that makes sense. And I know that it might sound really weird, but I guess I just interact with them as I would if I came across a living person that was behaving in that kind of way. I don't tend to come at them with aggression or negativity or fear, but I certainly don't allow them to continue to interact with me on a disrespectful level. It's all about protecting my boundaries. And, if they want help, with communication or to get a message across or whatever it is that they're trying to communicate with me about, if they want that help, then they need to respect me. And yeah, it might not sound very legit to some people, but I think it's important to have those healthy boundaries to protect yourself because there are some very unpleasant ones out there and you do need to protect yourself. But you also need to have those boundaries in order to do that. I hope that answers the question.
I agree completely, Jules. I would treat them the same as if they were here in our living realm. Nikki, what are your thoughts for Yvonne?
Hey, Yvonne, it's Nikki. With regards to your question, the answer is yes. For me, because I see spirit, I can see them, but you also have this, I don't know how to explain it, this feeling. And you just know it's a combination really of not just seeing them, but the feeling, the knowing, all senses really kind of go on alert. So the answer to your question is yes.
Okay, thanks, ladies, and thank you, Yvonne, for sending in that question. Our next question is from Sheena. Hello, I wonder how many orbs does one spirit make? Is it one orb for one spirit, or is the spirit spread among many orbs? Thank you.
Hi, Sheena. I think that the discussion of orbs is a very interesting one. And you could do a whole episode about orbs, I'm sure. But for me personally, my experience with seeing orbs, like the genuine orbs, not the orbs that you see that might be moisture or dust or insects. The experience that I had was it was one specific spirit with one orb, but it was very defined. It was very noticeable. You knew that there was a difference between that orb and what you might see, as I said, with dust and insects, moisture, things like that. They're very distinct in my experience.
Absolutely, Jules. I couldn't agree more. In my paranormal encounters, orbs have consistently displayed a unique and often unpredictable behavior, setting them apart from the mundane dust particles and insects which tend to follow more predictable patterns. Nikki, what are your thoughts for Sheena?
Hey, Sheena, great question. It's a funny answer. And I say that because of the fact that my housemate took a photograph of an old chair that we had years ago, and an old cat that we also had years ago called Tom Tom lived on this chair. That was his chair. 3 days after he passed, she just took a photo of the chair. And in the photograph were two orbs, green and purple. They were intertwined, but they were two separate colours. I've also seen orbs linked together to then create ectoplasm, which is then the manifestation of spirit. So it's a sort of bit of a, I don't know, a bit of a, not a straight up kind of answer, if that makes sense.
I love that, Nikki. That's very special that you've captured that. Now, you've said a lot there that we probably need to get into, but that's going to have to wait for another episode, especially about ectoplasm. But let's move on to our last question from Donna. Donna has said, ladies, can you share a memorable experience where your psychic abilities have helped someone in a significant way?
Yeah, I was able to use my abilities, and I guess you could say I did remote viewing. So I was at one location and a friend was at another location. And I had an image of being able to see the back of her house as if I was crouching down on the ground. And I didn't know what was going on. I just felt like I needed to call my friend and say, hey, look, just make sure you lock up the house. Don't, I could be wrong. Don't freak out. But yeah, it's just weird. And she got off the phone to me and she was about to tell her friend what was said on the phone. And she was about to follow through and say, oh, don't worry, if there was someone around, the dog next door would start going off his chops. And at that point in time, he started going off his chops. As a precaution, the police were called. They came out and they discovered her ex hiding in the, I think you would call it like a paddock or something, bushland out the back of her house. So, yeah, that kind of was a significant moment that helped someone by using my abilities.
Wow, Jules, that's incredible. Your abilities speak for themselves. And your poor friend, like, oh, luckily she had you, that's all I can say, and that the police were called. Nikki, I'd love to hear from you now.
Hey, Donna, for me, I was with a client, and at the time, her husband, who was in spirit, was talking to her and had this I said to her, your husband is quite agitated, but I said, I don't feel that that's what he was like alive. She said, no, he was very laid back. And I said, well, he keeps talking about a car. And I said, there's a clanking sound when the brakes are applied. I said, I don't know what kind of car. I said, all I can see is an old green car. And when you put the brakes on, not every time, but the brakes clunk. And I said, he's telling you to tell whoever owns that car that they need to have it looked at. And she followed up on that. And unbeknownst to me, it was her son's car and he hardly had any brakes left. And had he just kept driving like he would have or was, he could have had a serious accident because there were hardly any brakes left in his car.
Nikki, wow. That's all I can say. Like, that's an incredible story. And these are the stories that I love and that I want to share. It's amazing how spirits can communicate important messages through mediums like you and Jules. And it's even more remarkable when these messages have such a tangible impact on someone's life, potentially preventing a serious accident. And thank goodness that your client's husband was looking out for their son from the other side. Nikki and Jules, before we wrap up, are there any lasting words you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Yeah, Ben, I think I'd like to tell the listeners that if they feel like they want to learn more about their gifts and abilities or anything relating to that, don't be afraid to reach out to people that they might look up to. A lot of people are very genuine and they will take the time to talk with you and give you guidance and help. And often in those circumstances, you will find your tribe. You'll find a group of people that resonate with you and you can learn together and they can help you develop and grow because you're always learning, always, even now. I'm always learning. So just be open to learning and continuing doing what brings you joy. Thank you so much, Ben, for inviting me to be part of your podcast and to talk with you and your listeners. I've really enjoyed sharing some things that mean a lot to me and sharing my journey. And I would just like to say, if anyone does want to reach out, I'm more than happy to have a conversation and help anyone. Thank you so much, everyone, and take care.
I would like to finish up by letting everyone know that whatever your ability is, to simply just trust yourself, know that you're not crazy and that you're not imagining things. Whatever you're feeling, acknowledge it and honour it. There are many ways to learn and update your skills, etc., whether that be online courses, workshops, books, even downloaded meditations, and information is always there. Follow your own instinct always. It'll never let you down and it'll guide you to whomever and wherever you are meant to be. And if I can also help anybody, please just let me know. Thanks again, Ben. It has been an honour once again. Take care, everyone, and have a great day.
Ladies, your insights and experiences have truly enriched the conversation and undoubtedly captivated our listeners. Through your remarkable stories and profound connections as psychic mediums, you've offered a glimpse into the fascinating world beyond the veil. Your ability to bridge the gap between the physical and spiritual realms is nothing short of awe-inspiring, and it's been an honor to delve into these intriguing experiences with you. Thank you both for sharing your gifts and wisdom on this intimate interview, leaving us all with a deeper appreciation for the profound mysteries of life. And well, listeners, that comes to the end of this episode of Eerie Enigma Paranormal with Ben, an intimate interview with psychic mediums Nikki and Jules. Ladies, thank you so much for coming on the show. I truly appreciate it. And for any listeners out there that want to get in touch with Nikki or Jules, you can find them both on Facebook. Nikki is Nikki M, Crossroads with Spirit, Universal Connections, and Jules is Mystic Jules. Thank you for joining me on this latest episode, and until next time. This has been an Eerie Enigma Paranormal with Ben production. Share your captivating paranormal tales with me to feature on upcoming episodes. Connect with me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, or Spotify. Eerie Enigma Paranormal with Ben. Your stories are waiting to be told.